really was influenced me a lot too, because I felt even though I had been a part of the civil rights movement, of the sit-ins on my college campus, um, I I was just a part of that. Having the experience with the encampment left me with a sense of empowerment, that I really had the power to influence other people to tell our story.
Our whole focus was poverty, Appalachia, and civil rights. So we saw poverty and lived with the poverty in that week's experience.
But it wasn't until the encampment that I actually felt like that was my fight as well. Till I internalized it and realized that I wasn't just a witness to what was going on around me, that I actually could be an active player. And not just could be, but needed to be. It was at the encampment that I found that spark, that I found that kind of twist in my reality, that indeed I needed to do something to try and make my mark and create change in the world.
Matthew East Spetter, a man from Holland. And thing I remember him is wearing a short sleeve shirt and a big tattoo of numbers down his arm. And he never spoke of them, but he spoke of looking ahead, and that things can be better, but you've got to make them better.
And I just found it to be the most exciting 6 weeks that I'd spent in my life, because it really had a bearing on everything I did and relationships that I had. Started out as a teacher, and I was very active in the teachers union in Los Angeles. And for 8 years, I was an officer of United Teachers Los Angeles. Got arrested for a teacher strike. So really, the encampment just had a great impact on my life.
Growing up, this was the first time I got to talk about it with people and hear people's stories more directly. And people really shared with me what it was like to be targeted by racism. And that was huge for me. I needed that information so deeply. And what it did is it gave me, it was empowering. It gave me tools and the sense of power, that I had power with my privilege.
My first taste at actually applying myself to some kind of social justice was in the encampment. We went up to DC and sat down with the DOJ, and we had a focus group meeting that talked about the problems in our communities. And so everybody had different problems in their communities, and we all got to share that and try to advocate for something and feel like our voices were heard as like 16-year-olds.
Our charge was sit in this room and get together and figure it out, and figure out how to work with each other. We know we're all from different places. I mean, this is what I remember believing, and I think I'm accurate in saying this, that we came from different religious backgrounds. We came from different layers of the socioeconomic strata. We came from different geographic areas, so it was the beginning of saying, hey, you've got to work it out if you want to get along in this world.
My experience there was very eye-opening, although I knew there was racism, but I think we experienced a lot of that in Barboursville, Kentucky. We were an interracial group in the middle of a hollow in Barboursville, Kentucky, and we got all kinds of pressures, from threats, bomb threats, to harassments. And I know our leaders protected us a lot.
I learned about all the different issues that were going on, and how to pay attention to what's going on in government, and how things work, and how things work to divide us, and how we can work to reunite each other and help each other as human beings should.
And one of our encampers was proactive and got Malcolm X to meet with us. And I'm not sure, I can't remember if he came to Fieldston to meet with us or if we went somewhere to meet him. I think he came up to Fieldston. I think most of us from that year developed a sense of empowerment. We felt we could do anything, and I think that helped us through our life.
I flew many states away from my house, and so when I arrived, it was something that was very special, and it was something very different. The topics really were new to me because a lot of the topics were taught in school, but not into the extent and the depth of the encampment, the way the encampment taught and spoke about these topics like discrimination.
The encampment made it happen. We built a democracy, we lived a democracy, and we talked about issues that are not talked about in schools, even less today than they were then.
The encampment has taught me the importance of community activism because I am very aware of like the political climate, like nationwide. However, like this being here made me realize I don't know the councilman who's representing me. I don't know the people who are representing me and the people in my neighborhood. And my mother doesn't know, and there are a lot of people like in my neighborhood don't know. So like just like on the basic like local level, there are people speaking for us without us knowing who's actually speaking for us and without our actual input.
And I always remember Nanny Politzer saying, one person can do something. Don't be overwhelmed. If you see something, before it became a cliche, say, do something. I always had the encampment spirit as part of my motivation, or not my motivation, my way of acting, that if the room was silent and there had to be a protest, I did not feel inhibited, and I could hear the echoes from the encampment saying, somebody has to speak up.
Recognized the word prejudice in a quite new way, and it gave me courage to step in every time I thought it was necessary for the rest of my life. I'm really grateful for it.
And we went to the fields and we picked strawberries. We listened to the folks who were organizing the Farm Workers Union. We heard from the growers and what their issues were. We were exhausted, but that was perhaps, I never bought a pint of strawberries ever again without thinking about how much work and how little pay people got for giving me the privilege of being able to buy a pint of strawberries.
That taught me how to take a subject and say, wow, this thing has many facets. I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to look at it in different ways. And I'm not going to make my mind up based upon what we would now call a soundbite.
So I really took kind of the message from the encampment about like youth leadership and took that to heart. I feel like when coming back from the encampment, I started a Gay Straight Alliance, which is so like outdated now, I feel like in society. So it's kind of like cute to think back, like only 5 years ago, we thought that was like revolutionary. I've worked for access programs such as TRIO, Student Support Services for low-income first generation and students with disabilities. I've worked at a Pride Center for the past year.
I was very impressed by the fact that a Black professor came and told us his work and his contribution to the Supreme Court decision. And I thought to myself, now here's this professor talking to us as young students, and he's using his expertise to help his people. I ended up being the first woman chair of my tribe, the Menominee tribe, the first woman assistant secretary of Indian Affairs in the Department of Interior in the Clinton administration. And so the encampment experience was a very foundational experience for me.
I noticed that there were a lack of resources from just my peers within the encampment. So like stuff I'm doing now is really providing that platform for people. So for example, I went back to school and I started the Multicultural Student Union, but like as an alum at Williston, I now kind of am really pushing the headmasters to, hire a diversity recruiter, to hire a person to work within admissions and fixing curriculum and things of that nature. So I'm still fighting as usual.